Nomads or traditional communities on the move are today a worried lot. As the urban sprawl of cities increases and village commons shrink, they find themselves being displaced constantly. This is their story. A story of a way of life that is being threatened. A way of life that needs to be preserved, not for the sake of recording bits of history in a museum, but for more complex reasons. This is a personal account of our time spent with some nomadic communities in North Karnataka. In a way, we hope that this is their account too. It was a sensational experience for all of us as we set out to study the nomadic and semi-nomadic communities of North Karnataka region. The very first day, we were in for a treat. It was a Hagaluvesha performance of Ashwaramanna group. The muddy road was the stage for the performance. When Shurpanakha entered on the stage, we were thrilled. The costume and the body language of Shurpanakha were exceptional. The movement, dialogue delivery could only be marveled at. Everyone in the audience clapped and laughed and enjoyed wholeheartedly. At the end of the abridged performance of Ramayana, we were stunned to discover that it was a 14-year-old boy Ramesh who essayed the role of Shurpanakha. Narayan, the elder brother of Ramesh, was supposed to play the role, but he left it to his younger one because the former was hosting us on that day. Narayan said that his brother could play any role in Ramayana with ease. And this was the first time he is playing Shurpanakha. As the audience observed, it was a seasoned performance by an artist and not an amateur performance by a 14-year-old boy by any stretch of imagination. Yes, art runs through the veins of these children of Budaga Jangamas. Art is their culture and art is their livelihood. Budaga Jangamas, also known as Beda Jangamas, are basically a semi-nomadic community, better known for Hagaluvesha, a folk form of street theatre. Mythologies are the main source for this folk art form. Traditionally, Budaga Jangamas used Hagaluvesha and also hunting for a livelihood. Even today, considerable number of them stick to old customs, but majority of them have now changed their occupations because of altered environment. With the influx of globalization and global media, these folk art forms have no takers. Hit by the manufactured entertainment, some of the folk traditions are making rapid exit. Burrakatha Iramma is perhaps the best known face of nomadic and semi-nomadic communities in Karnataka. She is a folk balladeer who is literate to the extent of signing her name, but her achievements would make most learned envious. She is the recipient of many prestigious awards in Karnataka: Nadoja Award from Hampi University, Rajyotsava Award, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Award from the Government of Karnataka are only a few among them. Each time Iramma tells a story through poetry and prose, she improvises it, provides it new dimensions. That is why it is very difficult to record her narration in finality, says Professor K.M. Maitri, head of the Department of Tribal Studies in Kannada University, Hampi. Professor Maitri has done extensive work in studying as well as settling the nomadic and semi-nomadic communities in and around the university. In fact, Professor Maitri has also published two of her folk epics, Kumara Rama and Krishna Golla's epic and Ellamma's epic. Recently, the government has given Eramma a tiny land in a settlement camp in New Daroji, around 20 kilometers from Hospet. She has built a house out of her prize money. Now, she lives in the house along with her daughter and son-in-law. As we moved across the district of Ballari, we found more number of nomadic and semi-nomadic communities. Some of them settle now. Let us take a look at a few people. Though not as well known as Eramma, they represent the communities we came across. His name is Jambana. Now engaged in selling of plastic stationeries, he is a resident of newly set up Budga Jangama colony in Hospet. He is from the Budga or Beda Jangama community, which is traditionally a nomadic community dependent on Hagaluvesha, a folk theatre performance for livelihood. This is Maddi Marutappa. Aged around 55, he spends the entire day performing feats for the overawed audiences in the streets. He belongs to the Sudgadu Siddha community. He is Ningappa. Age 60, is basically from Chikkodi, but now wandering in Hospet, Ballari, along with 9 family members, including 2 women and a 3-month-old baby. He belongs to the Alemari Kurikar, a truly nomadic community which keeps wandering along with the herd of lambs throughout the year in different parts of the state, keeping in mind the seasonal changes. Ramesh, Eramma, Jambanna, Maddi Marutappa and Ningappa may belong to different communities, but they all have one thing in common. They are nomads of Karnataka, earning a livelihood by providing essential services to host or settled populations. The Budga Jangamas and Sudgadu Siddhas offer entertainment to the villagers and in turn get grain or money for their livelihood. Pastoral groups like the Alemari Kurikars are allowed to build temporary shelters on agricultural lands where the dung from their livestock helps fertilize the fields. As we traveled with the nomads and researched about them, we found that nomadism was more than just being on the move. The mobility of these groups was an essential economic strategy, central to the very nature of their profession. Indian civilization is distinguished by an immense variety of social groups whose norms of life and thought differ very significantly from the norms and lifestyles of settled communities. Nomadic and semi-nomadic communities, almost 190 varieties of social groups have enriched our traditions and culture by developing their own forms of expression and thought. These forms of expression include the musical instruments, songs, narrative, dance, costumes, rituals, theatre, artifacts, and food variety. Unfortunately, most of these are rapidly vanishing in the face of increasing sedentarization and urbanization of lifestyles. The nomadic cultures have remained away from the attention of scholars, art collectors, and the general population of India. As a result, very little information about the lifestyles and mindsets of nomadic communities is available to us. Communities on the move have set up home whenever and wherever they have stopped. We were first struck by their existence when we saw them in settlements, invariably in low-lying areas of the city, with no access to water and electricity. According to sociologists, South Asia has the world's largest nomadic population. In India, roughly 7% of the population is nomadic. Thus, they contribute a substantial portion of our population. Yet, despite their large numbers, most nomadic communities do not even have voting rights. Perhaps this explains why they have been largely ignored by policy makers and the government. So what is nomadism all about? Is it just being on the move? Sociologists articulate that before the advent of transportation and communication, mobile groups served as useful adjuncts to sedentary societies. In return for the services, they were allowed to squat on the village commons and use resources such as water or pasture lands for grazing their cattle till they moved on to their next dera. The nomadic way of life did not evolve in vacuum. Most communities today have deep historical roots. For instance, the origins of Killekyata or the leather picture exhibitors can be traced back to as early as 1520 AD. Many of the nomadic communities that I interacted with refer to some myth or local folklore that is associated with their origins. Most of these nomadic communities have been closer to the tribal or Adivasi communities in social relations and cultural past. The Adivasis themselves have a remarkably rich heritage of song, story, dance, and music. Moreover, they also have a very significant tradition of painting, sculpture, and craft. However, these traditions have remained enveloped in languages, which are now marginalized as languages without scripts. The attitudes of the nomadic communities to sedentary civilization, their understanding of ecologies, their worldviews, social structure, and social relations have all eluded understanding in the general intellectual and historical discourse in India. Nomadic communities, wrongly notified during the colonial times as criminal communities, the colonial law that placed most of these communities under suspicion by notifying them has been one reason for the remoteness of these communities from the rest of the Indian people. Their nomadic habits and lifestyle is another and perhaps more important reason for their cultural alienation from the sedentary society. The pastoralists have completely different set of issues surrounding their lives. They have a large movable property in their cows and sheep, but the grazing land traditionally available to them has been rapidly shrinking. These are relatively prosperous communities forced in our time to shift their occupations. Social respect and legal protection are the crucial issues with denotified and nomadic communities. And respect for non-sedentary cultures is the main preoccupation with the pastoralists. We interviewed different nomads from different professions or economic groups, and two common elements, perhaps interlinked, emerged out. First, that each group had been affected by modernization and was into increasing conflict with sedentary villagers, with whom they no longer seemed to share a symbiotic relation. Secondly, as a result of the changing times, the value of their occupation had gone down. Increasingly, nomadic people were turning to the labor markets or construction sites for jobs. As we came to the end of our research, we wondered, what would happen to traditional livelihoods? Would the modern market be able to absorb these people and their skills? And what would happen to the culture when a livelihood died out? Would Maddi Marutappa, the charmer, and Ashwaramanna, Hagaluvesha exponent, Burrakatha Iramma, the balladeer, end up as construction workers or tilling land? If one looks at unemployment figures in the country, it seems clear that the modern labor markets can barely provide gainful employment to settled or even educated people. Perhaps there is a need to safeguard traditional occupations and ways of life, not for the sake of romanticizing them, but by recognizing this way of life as an enterprising, security-oriented strategy and respecting it.